Before we begin, I would like to address the fact that I'm not going to be covering every single live adaptation ever, mainly because a lot of them are based on books, and I don't read a lot.
Read, nigga! Read!
That being said, I'll only be covering movies that I've actually read the book or seen the other source material for. Won't be covering remakes, doesn't matter that much. The biggest complaint I hear when people talk about Lord of the Rings is how slow moving it is. Yes, it absolutely is, but so is the book. There is so much stuff in the book that feels like filler. Don't get me wrong, a lot of it's character development, but the majority of it is just them talking, especially the scene where they're figuring out like who's gonna take the ring and shit. It's just people talking. It's so slow moving. And there's nothing wrong with a story that, has to be a little bit slower. But when people complain about the movie being slow, it was fast paced compared to the book. Even though there was less character development in the movie compared to the book, it doesn't matter. A lot of the scenes were super impactful and emotional, and that was thanks to the actors. The battles were crazy intense, and I loved every second of it. I don't think there was a single battle that actually didn't have me hype for the next one, especially battles like Helm's Deep. It was just truly phenomenal, and the music makes it so much better too. Now, I won't lie to you, I never actually finished the last two Lord of the Rings books, so I can't really confirm or deny how fast-paced or slow-paced it is compared to the books then, because let's be real.
I ain't reading all that.
Once again, I only read the first Percy Jackson book, so as a result, I'll only be reviewing the first Percy Jackson movie. I know the movies never actually covered all the books. I think there were only 3. I did watch all the movies, and I love them as movies, but were they necessarily accurate? The first one was, for the most part. I can't confirm about the other 2, but supposedly they were. Thank you, Martin. But for the most part, I like to think of them more as just movies, because as good as the books were old when I was a kid. I mean, I might be wrong on that, but at least that's how they felt to me. The movies were very refreshing compared to them, and I just like them more. But that's just me. Let's do some quick Disney ones real quick. Scar was really good, and he was the best part of the live-action Lion King. I enjoyed everything else, and I think that Lion King was the perfect example of how you do a live-action remake, because they didn't change anything, they didn't add or take away any characters, they just went scene for scene, made it all live-action looking, and moved on. That's the best way you could ever do a live-action remake. Now looking at the complete opposite of that, Mulan. They removed the best part of the movie and got rid of my boy. Mushu was probably the best part of the original Mulan, and he was very lovable. The original Mulan had an incredible plot. Didn't really stick with this newest one. I don't really know why they changed everything. It's not like they were trying to make it more appealing. I mean, Mulan's literally a movie and show for kids. I don't really get why they would change everything, but they did. I don't think Mulan was fundamentally a bad movie in the remake, or a bad character, and in fact I loved it. It had a lot of good scenery and fights and whatnot, but changing the ending, somewhat of the villain, a lot of the fights and the characters, it just felt like a different movie, and I think that would have been fine, but just don't call it Mulan. Jungle Book. Honestly, the big monkey was the best part of this entire movie. No, not that one. He really made a good villain and was just fun to have around, even though it was short-lived. Beauty and the Beast was very faithful to the adaptation, but all the pots and stuff were very creepy, and it was kind of disturbing. Dumbo. We just don't talk about Dumbo. Aladdin. Very faithful. Will Smith was alright, but granted this was PSA, aka the pre-slap era of Will Smith, so he was a lot better. Whenever people talk about live-action adaptations, this always comes up. Now, this movie is anything but an adaptation. This movie is like somebody saw the posters for Avatar and decided to kill themselves, and the blood splatter on the wall is what made that movie. This movie is nothing like the original. They don't even keep the characters the same.
My name is Zong.
They just have the same, not even premise, it's just the same concept. It's genuinely not even the same thing. Really, it would be like if I told somebody to read Lord of the Rings and then showed them Star Wars. I only watched this as a 16-year-old. And I watched this after watching things like Naruto and Fullmetal Alchemist, and I know what good shows are. and I still loved it so much. It is truly a good show, and I'd recommend it to anybody. But this movie has none of that. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details because I'm sure your favorite YouTuber who reviews movies has already said everything they need to say about this. However, I do have some good news. A much more faithful live-action adaptation is coming out, and trust me when I say this, M. Night Shyamalan is nowhere near this movie. All the actors are big fans. Granted, they haven't released any trailers or announcements yet for it, but still, it's going to be good when it comes out. Or at least I hope so. They would actually have to try to mess this up. Avatar is a very simple story, and messing it up, it really does take skill. That's about all there is for this one. I'll see you next time.